One of the relatively popular theories I've heard is the idea that Fallout 4's Dogmeat is a synthetic canine. In a game all about artificial replacements of true-born creatures, it's perhaps not the most crazy idea to jump to. Is Dogmeat a synth? I received an email from someone, an Andy, sharing a theory about Dogmeat being a synth. A theory I've heard before, but never paid much mind to until now. It's a pretty common one. There's a few variances to this theory, but ultimately, it's about Father creating a dog to either help or guide the sole survivor through the wasteland, and possibly monitor them. Dogmeat is rather conveniently close to Sanctuary, isn't he? Now, while I'm mostly following the one Andy sent me, I'm also looking at a few commonly mentioned ideas. These are Nate and Nora's dog, Dogmeat's wasteland experience, Dogmeat's companion status, Dogmeat's health, and the Institute's actions. We'll go through each of these. Let's begin. We'll start off by talking about Nate and Nora's dog. It's a dog that doesn't have an actual appearance in the game, but is mentioned in the opening sequence. There is a dog bowl inside the sole survivor's home, and when clicked, the sole survivor will mention that their dog went missing some time ago.
Never gonna find that dog.
On its own, it isn't terribly important, but under the theory that Dogmeat was modeled after this particular dog, things get a bit more interesting. That said, the only way Sean would have any awareness of what Dogmeat looked like is through some type of video or photo evidence. There is the suggestion that Sean looked through Codsworth's memory, but there isn't any kind of evidence for that in the game. If there was a line about Codsworth saying something about his memory being messed with, or being fuzzy perhaps, or even better, the sole survivor looking at Dogmeat and saying something along the lines of, "You look just like a dog I once had," then I feel this part would actually have more credibility. While yes, Dogmeat is in a super convenient location, and most players will come across him while leaving Sanctuary, the whole reason he's on the path to Concord appears to be that he was part of Preston's group during the attack by the Raiders, and Dogworks was simply trying to find some assistance for Preston and friends. In addition to that, he's quite familiar with Nick, who uses the canine's tracking ability for some cases. What's more interesting, with Nick being a synthetic, he can perform a dog whistle frequency to summon the canine if the player has not yet met Dogmeat up until this point. Some believe this is a synth-to-synth frequency, which sounds interesting given that Dogmeat could be as far as Red Rocket by this point, and far, far beyond the range a dog could hear. That said, even if the player has met Dogmeat and left him at, say, Sanctuary, he'll still instantly teleport just outside of Kellogg's door without any sort of notification. Given that, I feel Nick's whistle is more about Bethesda just giving a little hint saying, "Hey, it's a dog Nick is talking about," rather than a synth thing, as there's no point in the conversation that Nick mentions who or what his partner is. I'll be honest, it looks more like a little fan servicey type of thing to surprise the player who skipped Dogmeat. After all, Dogmeat has been a popular staple of the franchise since the very beginning of the games, just different versions of Dogmeat. But regardless, the canine has been on a lot of adventures. We're told throughout the game that Dogmeat likes to help people. There's a suggestion that the helpful, adventurous nature is a test run for the Institute prior to assisting the sole survivor. See if he's capable. But that seems a little far-fetched to me. Dogmeat is a companion like any other dog we paired up with before, whether it's Fallout 1's Dogmeat, Fallout 2's K9, Fallout 3's Dogmeat, or Fallout New Vegas' Rex. Plenty of these dogs have their own stories, their own companionships, and their own adventures. While Fallout 4's Dogmeat seems to be much more of a free spirit compared to some of the others, he is, in the end, much like them. Some point towards his ability to follow commands, but Fallout 3's Dogmeat is a wild mutt when we found him, and he would listen to commands as well. And he has far less known social interactions with people compared to Fallout 4's Dogmeat. There's also the defense of Dogmeat not having a synth component. Since he is a companion and unable to die, there would be no need to give him said component. While true, a lack of evidence isn't really evidence in itself. Still, I won't factor in the synth component. Some also point to Dogmeat's health. He's not like other dogs in the Commonwealth, is he? Such as the heavily damaged and mangy vicious dogs in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Perhaps that's an example of synthetic manipulation. Thing is, he is like other dogs in the wasteland. There's tons of dogs out there that are healthy like he is, if only slightly damaged from battle. Junkyard dogs that you could buy from a traveler, or the dog you could buy from Erickson the Super Mutant. The Pack and Gunners also have healthy attack dogs. Besides the more obvious mutant hounds, the only other dog-like species in the Commonwealth is the mongrel, and that species appears to be heavily mutated. Now, he's the only known German Shepherd. Perhaps him being a purebred 200 years after the Great War is more interesting. Now, I know that I've seen to argue a lot against this idea. But is it safe to say he's not a synth? I wouldn't bank on that just yet. To be clear, this wouldn't be completely unthinkable. Sean is responsible for the Soul Survivors release. He did want to meet his surviving parent and wanted the parent to lead the Institute. The idea of Sean helping them with a synthetic canine isn't that far-fetched. After all, Sean did create a child in his own image for the sake of manipulating the parent. This is especially more viable when you consider that not all synths and fallouts are human-oriented. They do animals as well. There's a famous synthetic gorilla, synthetic birds are also a thing, acting like spy cams for the Institute, so it appears to be very possible. It goes well with their style. But is it the case? So I can certainly see the argument for it. It fits the overall theme of the game. There's some evidence that can support the idea, but there's not anything really that strong. Still, there's not much to go against it either. Even some pointing towards studio director Joel Birch's tweet chain on River's passing, the German Shepherd that Dogmeat is modeled after, where he said this dog doesn't belong here and neither do you, isn't exactly strong evidence. It's very vague, intentionally so, as he notes about Dogmeat's origin. While some may read this as confirmation of the Synth storyline, others can view it differently. I personally see it as more of a meta sense, in that Dogmeat is based on River. Her model means he doesn't belong to the world. So what would I grade this? A very whelming, I don't know. I see it's possible. It fits the world, it makes sense, but most of the supporting evidence isn't exactly convincing, or is a gameplay thing. The dog bowl, the Institute's behavior, and the Twitter post in regards to River's passing are the strongest pieces of evidence, but they're not that strong on their own. But a single line would probably change that up. If this whole survivor said you look just like a dog I had long ago, I feel it would jump to likely, because there's really nothing that goes against the idea. But what do you think? Do you believe Dogmeat of Fallout 4 is a synth, or just a normal dog that likes to roam the waste? And a special thanks to my channel members, especially my member Sliceover guys, the Crazy Game Developer, and Danny McPhee. If you want to support me and join as well, I'd be more than happy. Also, feel free to join my Discord server and chat with us. Thank you, have a good one.